everyone. Welcome to another episode with myself, Kailyn, on Career Kickstart Conversations. Today we have a special guest, Talent Acquisition Manager, Kat. If you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into the topic today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Kailyn. Thanks for reaching out on LinkedIn. I tell my candidates my LinkedIn inbox is the least likely place you will connect with me, as I don't check it as regularly as I know I should. But yeah, Kat Michels. I've been in talent acquisition and recruiting just over 9 years in a variety of industries that are sales, marketing, tech, accounting, finance, as well as commercial real estate investing has been my most recent in the last 3.5 years. So I've seen it all at this point. It has changed drastically in the last decade, and excited to see how it continues to learn, how I continue to learn and grow in this space, as well as enhance candidates' experiences.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on here. What a plethora of industry background, and that's wild. Usually you hear people niching, so you can speak to a lot of different people's perspectives and experiences. So anyway, today's topic is a big one, especially in the past few years. A lot of people are stuck here with fatigue in their job search. So job search fatigue and how to stay motivated. Kat's going to give us her take on that. We've all personally been there, I'm sure, but we're going to kind of segment this episode into two parts. So the first, we're going to do searching while employed, and then kind of the last 10 to 15 minutes, we'll kind of go into detail on searching while you're unemployed. So there's going to be some similarities and crossover, I'm sure, but then some major differences, and throughout, just getting those tips on how to stay motivated, keep going, and what to do in certain situations. So for searching while employed, what are some of the top challenges that someone faces while employed and looking?
Right. So I do want to preface as well that prior to hitting the job market as a talent manager, I have a nutrition degree that is focused on health and wellness. So this topic specifically is very close to not only my education and knowledge, but also a lot of my philanthropic endeavors. So challenges that candidates are facing while job hunting, the most obvious is time management, right? So while we're working full-time jobs, whether they are full-time, part-time, regardless, there is limited availability to job hunt. I remember one of the first times I was on the market myself as a candidate, I set an unrealistic expectation of doing 3 job applications a night, and 1 job application alone took 3.5 hours. I then, went and edited those goals to how much time I was then spending. However, to back it up to those candidates that are working, depending on your work environment and depending on your own personality, I'm someone who's very vocal and I'm very confrontational, very comfortable speaking my mind. So I've had supervisors who have been very open and willing, open-minded, and open door policies that I've been able to go to them to say, this isn't working out. Just to give you a heads up, I am on the job market. Other companies I know are not that open and welcoming to those topics. And so sometimes we have to hide, the fact that we're on the job market. So then we might feel like we're being, we might not be in alignment with our moral compass as far as being trustworthy, being honest humans. Then let's say we're in a completely in-office position or on-site role. It's almost impossible to get off-site to do in-person interviews. And that alone, those are the primary challenges I see current candidates that are working facing, as well as just being comfortable and confident. And I see them kind of pull away, right? It's like, okay, I am still employed. I do have great benefits. I have income. It's better than not. I recognize I'm in a world where there's a ton of layoffs. So I'm just grateful to have a job, and this job is making it work. So why would I look and do something different? Just to name a few.
Yeah. People, they initially have that
Mhm.
spark. I want to go look for a job because, they
Mhm.
have that energy and
Right.
something happened
Mhm.
or whatever. But then they start looking and they're like thinking, oh, well, maybe I should stay. And all these things are really
Mhm.
great. It's like a relationship. It's like, well, this
Yeah.
isn't so bad. You start justifying what you
Yep.
don't like
Yep.
about it. So that's tough. It's like the mental space that
Yeah.
that it puts you
That
in.
brings that brings a specific example to mind. I remember contacting a candidate for a phone screen. He said, "Oh, I applied to this job because I was really pissed off at my boss
Oh,
last week, but they brought in free breakfast today, so I'm here to stay."
oh,
Yes.
that's hilarious. What
Mhm.
Speaking of that, it kind of transitions into the signs. Like, what are some
Mhm.
signs that this is kind of a
Mhm.
broad question, but a
Yeah.
person in their job, what are some signs that show them maybe it's time to start looking?
Yeah, I really boil this down to energy expenditure. And I can say this through my heart and soul is I've been in jobs that gives me so much energy. I could do a 14, 16-hour day and come home with energy to cook a real meal, go to the gym, have a 2-hour conversation checking in on my sister and nephew. And, I can still give to my personal passions without sacrificing sleep and adding additional stress. And then that's the opposing side is you find yourself coming home or at the end of the day more exhausted than not. And it can even be maybe depending on if we're a morning person or not, are you waking up with energy, excited for the day and your tasks at hand?
Mm.
Now, in some of my talent roles, there's been some HR touch bases where I just wake up and I know the day is not going to be great because I might have to have some hard conversations I'm not excited about. However, if I call it the 80/20 rule. So, and this is not new and this is very much everywhere online as far as goals and balancing life is, 80% of the time are we hitting the marker versus not. So I'd say the biggest sign is energy expenditure. Second, I think is strictly compensation benefits. What you're putting in, is it exporting a lifestyle that is comfortable and confident that you need to continue to learn and grow? Life changes. The way I recruited in my 20s is not the way I recruit in my 30s. And thankfully, I also have recruited everything from C-suites and co-founders and partners to everything as far as hourly positions in fast food and retail.
Mm.
And it really truly does depend on your lifestyle and what you need. And don't ever be ashamed of what you need. It's okay to say, I'm going to look for a different job because I know that the job market is different than it was 3 years ago. And I can get 20, 30 grand more. And that would significantly change my lifestyle for myself and my family and or friends. The two things, energy expenditure, compensation. And then for me, it's always the people I work with. When I have a team that I'm excited to work alongside and I have strong relationships and, you know, truthfully, the friend that I am working out of her living room right now today, she's a friend I met at a job in 2016. We've stayed in touch. I'm
Wow.
here playing with her 1-year-old every night. Like it is, those relationships matter. And she's actually a recruiter and she set me up in my most recent position.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about networking.
Yeah. So the type of work you're doing, how you're being compensated and benefits. And then last but not least, and definitely my number one is the people of whom you are working alongside every day. Can you trust them? Are you comfortable being open and honest with them?
What's your tips on staying organized to possibly avoid that burnout, not get to that point?
Calendars, Excel sheets. I am also old school when it comes to post-it notes. I have different
Oh,
post-it notes based on the positions I've applied to. And then I move the post-it like, okay, I completed the application. Did I follow up with the job poster? Have I reached out a week later to follow up on the application itself? If I moved on to the phone screen, did I thank the recruiter for their time within 24 hours of that? And those are some of just markers, but it's also okay. So life is life. I was going to say the fatigue part of the job is just, I think 10% of fatigue of just life in general. We as a nation have gone through a lot in the last 5+ years. So knowing what you can and cannot handle is step one of staying organized. And then step two is whatever truly works for you, however you stay organized in your home life as well as your work life, utilize it. I'm a huge advocate of the Notes app on my phone as well. And I probably have 40 open going right now just for whether it's grocery lists or birthday parties that are happening this month. It's April 1st today as we're recording this. So one happy April Fool's Day. But two, it's like, I know I need to look at my April calendar. I know I have an event it's someone's birthday party every weekend. It's an aunt, it's a college friend, it's my friend here who has the 1-year-old. And it's like, are the presents bought? Am I shipping them from Amazon and where are they landing? What am I wearing? What am I packing? Some of these trips are out of town. So Notes app, Excel sheets, post-it notes. Get those brain thoughts on paper or written down somewhere that you can access them because I am someone that have 20 brain thoughts at once. And when you're working, you've got your work projects, you've got meetings you're preparing for. You also have to ensure you're taking care of yourself and this new goal of hitting a new job and making sure that you're getting those things accomplished.
okay. Great advice. And when you say for example, the Excel spreadsheet, are you telling people to like every job they apply to, put it there, like what day? What should they be putting there in their
Even if
Excel
it's
spreadsheet?
like, make sure you leave the office by 5 o'clock so you're home by 5:30. and you get dinner and gym in by 7 to carve out that 8 to 10 p.m. time to apply for a job. However, you write down goals and stay organized in any other area of your life. I even do my workouts in Excel, depending on if I'm doing cardio or yoga that day. It's like I have a Sunday to Saturday list, essentially like a calendar, and I have everything on there, personal, professional. Canva even has some amazing free resources to stay organized on just tasks in general.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And Google image search, there are so many things out there. I think even Etsy had a few like personal goal sheets and financial goal sheets, and just looking. And if you don't think you're an organized person, use the internet to find a resource that will help you get organized. And again, whether it's pen to paper or typed on an electronic iPad, computer, cell phone, somewhere that reminds you to commit to that goal and execute accordingly.
Awesome tips. And the calendar, I like how you mentioned like the segment time out of your day. Like you're really kind of planning
Yeah.
your day. Cause I feel like a lot of people, when they are at the burnout
Mhm.
stage, I'll ask them, well, how many applications have you submitted, interviews? And they'll always say, oh gosh, I don't know a ton. Oh my goodness. It's just been like, has to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But
Mhm.
I think when people, like you said, are organized and know how many, when it's not, I don't know the psychology behind it, you
Right.
might, but it's when you kind of know what's going on
Mhm.
and you know what's coming,
Yeah.
that fatigue isn't
Mhm.
as bad because you're almost really aware. And maybe it's not as many as you thought,
Mhm.
or you sit back and say, oh my gosh, I blocked out my calendar for an hour and I only applied to 2 jobs. No wonder I'm
Right.
exhausted.
And I will say that from the psychology behind that is that when you can lean on the data and numbers of anything in your life, it erases an emotional connection. So, like you said, like I'm telling myself I've done tons and hundreds of applications. Well, if you select the button on LinkedIn that said, yes, I applied to this job, and Indeed is going to track that for you as well. When you're on your accounts, it'll show you the list of jobs you've applied to. But some are simple. Someone's like, upload your
Mm.
resume, put your name and email, answer some of the pre screen questions, and you're done versus, needing to provide examples of projects and things you've accomplished before. So, but yeah, the psychology
Yeah.
behind it is definitely the numbers are real. The numbers make it real. And you can't really fight emotions. Like, yeah, 100 applications is a ton. But when you see on LinkedIn, people who've been on the job market for 18 months, almost 2 years, and they're still not landing things, there is a time I'd probably stop tracking the number and just make sure my mental health is in alignment.
So earlier you mentioned, obviously, we're on the topic of searching while employed,
Mhm.
which is tough. What are some tips or how should someone keep that discreet if they have to keep it
Right.
discreet? Sometimes people can like let their
Mhm.
employer know, but for those who want to keep it discreet,
Right.
what should they do
So
about that?
first you need to investigate how discreet you need to be. And I say this lovingly to every human who is on this planet of when I speak to a candidate for a next position, we are in a world now where I specifically state, are you sure your employer will allow you to work out a 2 weeks notice? And most of the time, depending on the industry, I have seen where they say, oh, I'll have to put in a 3 to 4 weeks notice to offload my workload and project loads. Or I know XYZ in my department put in their 2 weeks notice, they accepted it, and 2 days later they were fired and laid off, and no severance, no support, whatever. Ask around. If you
Mm.
don't know for sure, you can ask around. There are some trustworthy people, somewhere in your organization that you can ask and just say, like, hey, out of curiosity, what is the respectful way to put in a notice here? Not for me, just curious. If you do have to be discreet, I think it's really, really important to note that when you mark yourself open to work on LinkedIn, even if it's for recruiters to view only, if your company has a LinkedIn recruiter package, your recruiter at your company can see that you're open to work. Now, for me as a recruiter, if I see somebody that's in a company that I'm in and I see they're open to work, I immediately initiate a confidential stay conversation to say, what's the missing piece? Can we go to the board and ask for more comp? Is it a scheduling thing? Is it a leadership thing? And I'll try to dive in deeper. And then for me, I start working on that position confidentially without alerting anyone else. But that employee does know, that teammate does know that I know, and they know it's safe with me. So to keep it as discreet as possible, I can't speak and say that every single HR department would work that way. I just continue to work. I continue to work and invest in people in a way that I would want to be treated. And when you meet someone, if you can trust them with information or not. And, just know that if you are marking yourself open to work online, it's not as confidential. And again, if you're in the accounting department, you don't know what resources the HR department is using and utilizing. So there's no real way to know without asking. If you don't have that great relationship with your supervisor, you're going to have to put in PTO days or sick days to hit those interviews. And you're unfortunately going to have to toe a line between being dishonest to get your goals accomplished. And I hate that that's the world that we live in. But the reality is, if you need to protect that stream of income while you figure out, you got to move silently and you got to move quietly and as careful as possible. So, highly encouraged to not take phone calls in stairwells. They echo. Floor
Yeah.
4 can
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
what you're saying on floor 1. If you're in a parking garage, if you're sitting in your car, don't connect to the Bluetooth. I actually presented this to a board of trustees and shareholders to say, hey, don't sit in your car on Bluetooth and have confidential conversations because anyone walking by your car can hear that. Keep it on the device.
Yeah.
Um, it
Good
is best
tips.
just to take it as offsite as possible when you can, and being open and honest with whether it's a hiring manager that you're speaking with about a position or a specific recruiter, like emphasize that you have to be discreet in your role. And I've worked with tons of hiring managers that'll do early mornings, late nights, or even weekend interviews to close that gap. And then another piece is, if you feel the need to be discreet, always use your personal devices. Don't ever use your work device to be applying
Yeah.
for jobs. And IT can log in at any minute of any day based on request to look and see where your time is being spent. So some
Hmm.
unfortunate education that I've seen burn some current candidates on the market now, just based on the way some employers are operating. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've seen it a lot. And the open to work thing, it is risky, and it so depends, like you mentioned, on who your HR and TA is. I
Right.
mean, I've obviously on the staffing side, I work with a lot of clients and I hear a lot of stories. And sometimes my clients have reached out to me and been like, hey, can you see if this person's open to work or
Mhm.
whatever? And I'm like,
Right.
well, okay, well,
Yeah. For all hiring managers, I've said this before, is they're like, oh, I don't want anyone on my team who doesn't want to be here. And I say, just because they're shopping for a new car doesn't mean their current car doesn't meet their current needs. They might just be seeing
mhm,
what's out there. It's not real until it's in writing. I say that about job offers too. Like, that person is not looking to leave until they put in their notice. Just because they're having
yeah,
conversations does not mean they're looking to bail. It doesn't they might just be curious to see what else is out there. And there have been times myself that I've hit the job market and I've been like, oh, I really want to stay where I am. So it
yeah.
goes both ways.
What do you think about this one?
Mhm.
Because I've never run into this except for the past 2 to 3 years. Where like Canada shopping the market, fair
Yep.
enough. But I've gotten people all the way to an offer. Everyone's working so hard, company's excited, we're excited, whatever. But then the candidate kind of admits, like, well, I just wanted to offer in writing. So I'm really happy where I'm at, actually. I kind of like lied the whole time and I took it back to my employer and they matched it. So I'm staying. And it's just like, what do you think about that? Because that's new to me. I don't really know how to think of it. I'm like, this is wild.
Um, I think everyone involved should like have burn cream available. Um, it's just because at the end of the day, it boils back down to that energy expenditure. It's like, what is sad to me is that that candidate, as an employee and a quote unquote potentially valued person on a certain team, that's what they needed to do to ask their current, like, that's what they needed to get their needs met. Like, that's sad and pitiful, and I wanna immediately do an HR consult, get my business and their business for 6 months and straighten some people out that need some shaking. But it's an egregious way to treat anyone, especially the agencies that are working, and hey, those problems are still there whether that counter is accepted. There was an experience I had where my employer knew I was on the market because the resources weren't provided on site to be successful on site. And you were required to be on site for 3 days a week. And I wasn't necessarily looking for a remote role. I just wanted a role where I wasn't sharing an office space with 3 other people, where I could hold confidential conversations and be successful in my role. So essentially,
Yeah.
they offered me a counter, they offered me a stay without me having another offer. And then 4 months later, got laid off. So, um, it
Oh,
is what it is at this point. But at the same time, yeah, the candidates that need that to stay, I would highly question the current team and how performance reviews are made. And like, maybe they need to get leadership consultants in. And honestly, by that point, you'd have to be groveling to that other new company. Because not if it is an agency or even if it's an internal recruiter, like, they don't look as great when they got it that far and then they didn't close. So unfortunately, that means like that team is now back to scratch, which means it's another six
Hmm.
to 8 weeks before they find an ideal candidate. And even if they had a backup candidate, you can only, I think the longest I've held someone who received a verbal offer, but we were holding on the written for some ungodly reason. It was like 4 weeks. And the
Oh
only reason
gosh.
he stayed that long was because he was like, "Kat, I can tell you're a really great recruiter, and if it was anyone else, I would have bailed 2 weeks ago." And he's still
Oh,
in
that's
the role and very happy, and he was definitely our number 1 choice, but that's unfortunately how I have to treat sometimes my, number 2 and number 3 candidates is even if they sign the offer letter, I don't always feel it's real till they're in the door, and that has
yeah.
changed in the last 2 to 3 years. We as recruiters are working triple time to not just retain those candidate pipelines, but to get them started and know for certain that they're in the seat. And I mean, I don't pull job ads until they're in the seat for a week. So yeah, burn cream all around. That's really bad humanity ways to work. And honestly, how's that candidate? I wouldn't be so honest that I lied the whole time. Like some things don't need to be said. Like don't triple burn me because now if you call back, I'm not going to work with you.
Exactly. I'm like, well, now I'm not going to
Yeah.
place you because
Right.
that was a pretty big lie,
Right.
aggressive lie all throughout to everyone. And the thing is, what happened with those people? Because I was curious and I followed up. I'm like, where are they now?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Because my hiring managers were like, if someone did that to me, I would offer them more money just to keep them. And then I'd be searching for their role confidently because that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
shady. And so I'm mentioning this for the audience. Some people might be listening and be like, great idea, terrible idea, don't do it because it burned those
Burns both
people.
ends.
And that's exactly what happened. They found out that
Mm-hmm.
that's what that person
Right.
did at their current
Yeah.
company just to get more money. And they're like, well, you could have just had a conversation with me, would could have got this for you. But now I see what you've done. And it kind of broke the trust bridge in a way.
Yeah.
And now they just started searching for their role confidently. Yeah, as a staffing agency, now what we do is we're like, okay, if that happens again, we'll just call that hiring manager like, hey, we know just
Mhm.
what just
Yeah.
happened. Are you looking for a
And
backfill?
good point to echo to the
And they're like,
audience
yep,
because I feel the need to now share that in all 3 professional roles I've had in my career up to this point, I've always utilized a recruiter to find an internal TAM role. And when those agencies hear that I'm on the market, they're trying to get me in-house to work with them because they've loved the candidate experience as a candidate. I'll never forget the first one. Shout out to Bob Funderburg. If you ever hear this, he was a hoot to work with. And I will never forget, I had a job offer. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, looking to relocate to Charlotte. I had a really strong job offer in Raleigh, and I told him, I said, I'm accepting this because we're still waiting on this one. My number one hadn't gotten me to a final interview or potential offer. And I said, Bob, I've never accepted an offer and backed away, but I don't want to not accept this offer in my backup. Like, can you help me navigate these hard conversations? So I did eventually get my top offer. I did move to Charlotte. I did start with capstone companies. The initial offer that I accepted, I stepped away from. I checked in with that employer a year later because somebody in my network was looking for a role. She was hiring, and I connected one of my best friends to that position. She had been in that position 2.5 years. Through that position, she has now met the love of her life. So just like full circle moment is like not only did that employer they respected me so much for being honest. And at the time, honestly, Bob, he said, this is how you have the conversation, Kat. I respect if you want to have it, if you want me to have it. So I just, be honest, and your recruiter's your ally to work through any tricky situation you're in, but don't take advantage
exactly.
because shocker, all of our recruiters, they know each other, agencies know each other, we talk together, and we're going to ask, have you
Yep.
worked with this candidate before? Oh, that name sounds so familiar. Let me check my system and see my notes.
Yeah,
So, yes.
exactly. So searching while unemployed, I feel like this one is a really big mental toll
Hmm.
in the moment of getting rejection.
Hmm.
Your applications aren't getting any responses,
Yeah.
a plethora of things that are happening while unemployed.
Hmm.
So mental toll is obviously probably a bit higher than
Yeah.
while unemployed. So how can someone, I guess, keep that
Right.
mental space
Yeah.
level balance? I'm not really sure how to
Yeah.
explain
So
that.
to get started, I wanna correct a little bit of our language here is because I started, this, oh, it's harder, it's different. It's when you're in a job that sucks the life out of you, it's hard. It's a different type of hard. It's a different type of hard. And I'm not here to say one's harder than the other. I've been on both sides and I have so many relationships with so many different individuals who have been just in the thick of it on both sides. And I think now is an exceptional time to mention that if you are in an extremely mental exhaustion state, and you just need help or you need someone different to talk to and you need resources, the 988 national hotline for mental support is there and available and an exceptional resource. So, um, just to even, I mean, the obvious things of the mental and emotional toll is the lack of income, right? Like whether you're on unemployment benefits, which don't meet, I mean, we're already in a situation nationally where we're discussing, our compensation adjustments needed to meet, minimum cost of living. Unemployment definitely doesn't cover that. I think I saw a statistic last month where 90% of Americans do not have 3 months of cash in savings to cover them. Now, if you find yourself laid off today, it's going to take, especially if you're mid-level in your career, it's going to take 6 to 9 weeks. If you were to get a call back for the job you applied to in that first week of being unemployed, it's going to take that 6 to 9 weeks to get through an interview cycle, offer letter process, get started. And then depending on their payroll cycle, it could be another 2 weeks before you see a full paycheck. The entire financial component is one beast that you're facing, as well as your confidence. I am very fortunate, I feel, to have been on both sides of layoff conversations. So I've seen it from the inside. So when it was my turn to receive it, I took my 36 hours to sulk and do the things I do when I'm facing large rejection, regardless of if it's professional or personal in my life. And thankfully, it wasn't the first time I experienced a really tough time. So I knew what I needed to do to sit in it and sulk for a minute and then get back on my feet and be running, creating forward momentum. So, but I have seen it really hit people's confidence. And you can be an exceptional person at your job and still be under a layoff. And there's no way to explain it other than somebody somewhere who doesn't even know your name and doesn't even know that you're somebody impacted by this said, we need to cut X amount from cell C4. Then it trickles down to somebody else having to figure out how to make those numbers work. Another mental emotional toll of unemployment is that life doesn't stop. I think it was 3 summers ago. I had 5 friends getting married, 2 baby showers. Luckily, I was employed at the time, but a dear friend of mine wasn't. And it was very challenging to, I wasn't in a position where I could just like put her on my back and support her and, run with it. But she had moved in with me for a while, but she had to miss out on some of those bachelorette moments and bridal shower moments. And not so much from a financial standpoint, but she emotionally couldn't be the best version of herself to celebrate somebody in a large life moment because she was in the thick of it and she was in just a really hard mental place that she couldn't show up the best version of herself and she didn't feel it was fair to be present and not be positive. So life doesn't stop. Kailyn and I were joking earlier, but I had a really fat mechanical bill this morning that I wasn't expecting. Again, grateful and blessed to be able to handle that. And I do recognize that that is, a huge part of gratitude. So I think to kind of transition into trying to stay even keel through the life process and the unemployment process is if you can find a way to be grateful for the challenge and stay positive, no matter what it takes to get there. It took me, I used to be a very pessimistic person in my late teens and early 20s. And thankfully I had the right leadership around me in my mid 20s, late 20s that once I hit 30, I'm just such an optimistic and grateful person. I do recognize that that is due to a lot of privilege that not a lot of individuals have. But if you can find a way to be grateful for everything you have and be looking forward to the future and know that if it's meant for you, it will find you as long as you're putting your best foot forward, be patient with the process. No hiring process is fast. None of them are. And then sometimes, we can get into this a little later in the strategy part, but sometimes we got to take a gap fill role and we got to bite our confidence and we have to do what we have to do to make ends meet. But yeah, that the emotional mental toll is going to come from the fact that life does not stop for you. Ironically enough, going from a nutrition degree and landing in talent management and recruitment is I was in middle school and I watched my mom lose her job. And her job at that time, she was part of a team that they had agreed as a team to do pay cuts to keep certain people. And then I guess that had only lasted so long. So when it came time for another cut, either the team collectively said, we're not able to accept the cut. And she was one of the first people. And I just remember for her, that was the biggest burn, was she's like, I've accepted 3 pay cuts to keep the team together. And
Mm.
so that was hard to watch and witness her go through that. So I'm really careful with my candidates and how I speak and treat to them, just because everyone should be met with grace and kindness and patience. Which brings me to,
Yeah.
if you're ever a candidate, you can emotionally unload on me. I'm ready for it. It doesn't matter how much of a thick of it you're in it. If you can get it off your chest to me, I know I can get you prepared to meet that hiring manager, but not every recruiter can face that. So be very careful on who you're emotionally unloading to and on and how you do that, because a lot of companies won't work with you. And we can be
Yep.
understanding that you're in a tight spot. I mentioned the LinkedIn post I saw last week of someone being on the market 18, just over 18 months. I can't imagine how that feels, but if you can't rinse that and be excited for an interview, you got to do something to get you in that place, because you're never going to land that job. You're never going to get what's coming next if you can't be at least a decent version of yourself, not even the best.
Exactly. It's kind of like we all get it's a really rough time. And I'll say we get it very
Right.
smallly. Everyone's home life and it affects people at very drastic different levels. I mean, I've seen some people who got laid off. They're like, yeah, it kind of worked out just traveling for a year because I had a ton of savings or in a high paying job before. And some other people are like, me and my family are eating bread every day.
Right.
So again, like the emotional unload, I'll kind of piggyback off of that is kind of like slap your smile on for a lot of recruiters. Not every recruiter is going to listen. I mean, they'll listen, but then they may think like this is a really chaotic job. Or are you at the mental state to be able to handle this?
Right.
Or is this going to be a tough transition for you? Because so getting into
Yeah.
the right mindset for conversations and whatnot. What tips do you have for those people? I
Yeah.
know you said be patient, be getting this right mindset and whatnot, but any tips? I mean, obviously things work for different people.
To bring it back to what I said earlier is, when it was my turn to be laid off and be unemployed for a minute, it wasn't the first time life had knocked me down. So I knew what I needed. It wasn't necessarily manifestations. I'm going to pour the heavier glass of wine. I'm going to beg a friend to go out with me and grab the right cocktail. I am a martini girl through and through. Get me a good dessert. A tiramisu and espresso martini can perk me up in any negative situation. It's going to pretend for that 3.5 to 8 minutes that life is perfect. What was my saving grace is I am so lucky to have really, really great connections with family and friends and professionals but I did limit myself. I only told 10 people that this is my situation, because by the time you say something bad has happened to you 25 times, you're mentally reliving it and that emotional toll over and over. So very selective. So my sister was very offended. She was not part of my my inner circle, but she was pregnant at the time and she had just given 29.5 weeks early birth to my nephew. So, I was protecting her. She was dealing with her own. She wasn't going to come into mine. So I would say eat, drink, be merry for your 24, 36 hours. Like sit in the thick of it, do the things that are your favorite things with your favorite people. Let the core people who can help you in the know. Finding the person you can vent to and you can say, hey, I just need to get this off my chest. I don't necessarily need you to do anything or react. I just need you to be here to listen. Again, the 9889 number. Call. And then also be aware of the resources that are available to you. Thankfully, the first professional career I had early on, the CEO and president of our client broker at the time, from the minute I was hired, one of her biggest pieces of advice is always have your resume ready. She was so indifferent. And she's like, if you truly find another opportunity that's better for you, you're only going to see my support to help you out the door and help you level up, because I'm only a great leader if you continue to grow as a leader. And not that I've always taken that advice and I've not always kept my resume up to date. This was something we should have added back to the employment, is to always keep your resume up to date. And as you are accomplishing certain goals and you're doing exceptional project work, like send yourself a copy without the confidential information to keep on hand for future interviews. So that when you're unemployed, again, it takes the emotional toll out, because, the one time it was a complete shock to me, it took me 72 hours to even be ready to look at my resume and accept that this is really happening. And then it's like, oh, shoot, you got to file for unemployment. You need to maybe look and see like what food banks are available for resources for you and your family. And some food banks also have, diapers and wipes and formula, depending on, their resources too. So, golly, I could talk and talk and talk and talk. So, some people are exercise people, some people are video game people. Like whatever you can do that like can get you that energy back and get you back to right where, you need to go. I'm just an advocate of getting outside, take care of yourself, get some sleep. I guarantee you, if you dedicate yourself to getting good sleep 8 hours a day, if you need tips, Google, Pinterest, even Instagram has some like no screen time 2 hours before bed, read a book, journal, all these things. You mentioned meditation. I have to have guided meditation. I can't just sit in a room and my poor brain can't turn off without some help. So, there's so many free resources out there that you can lean into and utilize to focus on wellness. I will say yoga is a huge part of my life. And that has helped me stay grounded and, mentally strong. But I also, again, with the nutrition degree, there's not a meal that I don't have some level of, lean protein and vegetables involved, eating right. But again, that's also a privilege that not many people have when they're unemployed. A woman I worked with, golly, circa my teenage years, every day for lunch, she brought in rice and beans every day.
Oh God.
And at first I thought, oh, she just like it's the only thing she likes. And I asked her about it, and it's the only thing she could afford, And it's like
Oh,
that is
oh.
like right. So it's like there are a million different ways to do different things, and sometimes you got to get scrappy with it. So taking care of yourself can come in all shapes and sizes and mental health in general, but general guidance is to know yourself well enough that you know how to take care of yourself. But yeah, that's my ramble on that.
We can. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, mental health is a huge part of the unemployed and employed.
Yeah.
You can get really
Yeah.
really stuck in a dark place. I'm not mentioning a Disney movie, but
Mhm.
everyone should watch I think it's called Soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a kid movie, but I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, this is so deep.
Mhm.
And it's about mental health,
Right.
really. It was a portion of it.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's about a lot of different things. Disney,
Yeah.
your emotional roller coaster the whole time. But it kind of shows like how you can get really stuck
Mhm.
and get out of that place. Like you
Mhm.
said, mental health, physical
Yeah.
health. Once you do it for a while, you'll probably find like your groove and whatnot.
Mhm.
Because if you're not in the right mental
Mhm.
space, your interviews probably could just be useless.
Right.
Like your time and all of it could
Yeah.
be pretty useless if you're not
Right.
in that
Because you're
mindset.
not you. And when you're not you, like
Yeah.
that, almost that facade slash fakeness, that is so much stronger than a genuine version of you that's like a little nervous. It's two completely
Yeah.
different emotions and two completely different ways you can show up. And that's why I said earlier, if you can at least be decent. You don't have to be super
Mhm.
perky and over the top and super outgoing, but if you can at least be
Yeah.
decent and present what value you can bring to a company and why you're excited for the position, you'll land it and move forward every time, especially if you have a recruiter advocating for you and you're working with somebody, whether they're agency or not. They're gonna
Yep.
help land your key points and get you in that seat.
Yeah. The key takeaway to that, I just want to highlight
Yeah.
it because it's super important, is why you're excited about the role
Mhm.
and why you want it, how you can add value. I feel like when people get into a dark mental space and they interview, I see it all the time. And recruiters, we talk to so many people. I feel like we're almost therapists. Like we can read people's emotions like
Mhm.
in the first 15
Yeah.
seconds. Is I've found a lot of people who are unemployed a lot. That's all they want to talk about on the call. And I'm calling them for a job. And all they want to talk about is how many applications they've sent. Let's get to the
Mhm.
positive side. I have
Yeah.
a job. I want to be your
Mhm.
advocate, but they're like, oh, this is never going to work for me. And I'm like, but we're
Right.
trying to make it work for you. So get out of that mental space. It really is hindering
Yeah.
people.
Call those core
Um,
people who will listen to you. I can call my mom and say, "Can you don't even have to listen. I just need a vent. I just need to see
yeah,
mom on my phone," which, grateful to have her there, obviously, and friends and family that I can do that with. But yeah, if we're spending more than 3 minutes of you venting about your situation, I'm going to tell you that this is exactly why I can't present you yet. And I need you to call me back when you can. Um, yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So people get
Mhm.
nervous. I get this question a lot from candidates. They're like, well, if they do have a big gap in their resume, whether it was a
Mhm.
layoff or they just took a gap because they wanted to raise their kid for a
Right.
year, whatever. So it kind of goes for both, but obviously more focused on unemployment. How does someone explain their gap of unemployment from a layoff,
Yeah.
whatever it is? When a recruiter says, like, I always ask, what have you done in this past
Mhm.
year? Like, what have you been doing in the past year? How should they
Yeah.
what's
The
the
answer
answer?
is one, I can't believe I haven't said this yet under the unemployment or the employment phases, to always work with you will find with enough traction and attempts, you will find an agency that will work with you. You will find a recruiter who will just give you blanket, whether internal or external, they will give you blanket free advice. Ask whoever
Mhm.
has the relationship with the hiring manager how to answer that. I have some hiring managers who are like, I won't even like, they wouldn't even consider somebody with such a gap until I internally push and say, I can see and hear these skills and how they would add value to this role. Please, please, please meet with them.
Mhm.
And then I'm coaching the candidate to just like keep that answer as short and simple as possible. And you can guide the conversation back. So, this specific example I'm thinking of was someone had been unemployed for 8 months. And I told them, I said, as soon as you answer that, like, yeah, that's an 8 month unemployment gap. I did XYZ personal projects. What's your next question? And force that hiring manager to move past the process, because unless there is a specific way that that gap of unemployment or raising your kids is directly tying to the job and the conversation at hand, you only have 30 minutes in that introductory interview to land yourself, get them to move past it, push it, push it. And
Yeah.
then I had I think the longest I saw was 14 years where she did focus on raising her kids. Before that 14-year gap, she had 8 years of experience. And my question wasn't when she stated that she had had that gap. I then asked her for this specific role. I felt like the only thing that might have hindered her from consideration was what softwares that they used 14 years ago versus now. And when she listed all the different things and video games and whatever else that her kids played on and how she stayed organized at home, I was able to formulate a response I knew would land with that hiring manager and she could push that conversation forward. So do not spend more than a minute on whatever that response is. Less than 30 seconds, just like your elevator introduction, and push that conversation forward. You want to focus on what you're adding and not where you've been. Sometimes, and I've seen this a handful of times where someone's done project work or ad hoc work and they just didn't add it on their resume. Mention it. Don't mention it at a high level and move forward. You were helping, if you're in a finance role, you
Yeah.
were helping a friend of a friend who ran a bookkeeping service and you were just there for tax season. And, some careers aren't always above the table, those kinds of things. Or, maybe you did. There have been times in my career, unemployed, that we did like a skill trade. Like a friend of a friend needed help integrating a learning management system. They'd never done that before. I'd done it 5 times. A year later, I called them back because I needed help with like a PIP outline and, a onboarding program module or whatnot. So, if you have some of those experiences, let your recruiter know and just be honest with your recruiter and address it with them. I have not met a recruiter yet who feels like they have enough time in the day. So be sure
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
that gap, you're asking for guidance and you rehearse that. If you're in person, rehearse it in the elevator going up to the floor, because that has been some areas I've seen people trip and fall. And it's easy to get stuck there because, again, that's where the emotion is. But keep in mind, that's not the
Yep.
purpose of the conversation, and stay focused. And that you'll really wow the socks out of that hiring manager by leading and pushing that conversation forward.
Yeah. Great tip too, to just keep it short and sweet, because you're right. It's emotional topic, and the more emotional and personal the questions are, the more people will
Right.
talk about it, and they go on
Mhm.
and on, because and then it's something a lot of people are
Right.
embarrassed about. Don't be embarrassed
Mhm.
about it. I know it's hard. It's easy to say don't be
Right.
embarrassed about it, but try not to be, because it's
Yeah.
gonna hurt your interview, and people are wanting to over explain it. Also, when I've asked candidates that question, that's when they say, well, I was looking for work. I was like, you were looking for work every day for a year. They're like, yeah, it's a full-time job. And I mean, I don't really like that answer. But again, like you said, every
Yeah.
recruiter's different. It's like, well, tell me about what you did outside of that. We also want to know you're human. One of my friends, she started on it. She got laid off
Mhm.
during COVID, and she's like, I have to have
Mhm.
money, but I'm going to look for a job too. But I'm not going to be doing a million applications a day. It's just not
Right.
realistic. And again, it's going to hurt you to get
Mhm.
that burnout. So she's like, I did something fun. I ordered this little print machine and I made personalized like wine glasses on Etsy. She made
Yeah.
$3,000 a month
Mhm.
for the summer. She was like, I was busier
Mhm.
than ever. Then she got a job and quit it, because she's like, it was good money and stuff, but she took
Right.
less money because she's like, I don't want to run my own business. I want my
Mhm.
PTO and I want this, I want that. So her priority shifted her to going back to a corporate job. But how good would it sound in the interview? She's like, yeah, start my own company. And those
Yeah.
people who start
And to
businesses.
add
So
to add for the
yeah.
audience too, is I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, is I'm such a comedic relief human. Like, I One, I'm told I'm funny. I'm not sure I am, but if due to financial reasons or just availability reasons, if the only thing you did was become a hands-on player at home and apply for jobs, make a joke out of it. Be like, oh, I went from an entry-level job application individual to being a professional at working LinkedIn and Indeed from a candidate perspective, and throw that little giggle in there if it suits your personality. You can look at, oh, I can't afford to go pick up a new hobby, or I can't afford to this, can't afford to that. Like, there's so many free available things online, like people who can, you just have, I don't know, even Word and Excel or even Canva, and then you open it in an Etsy shop and people are buying it, but they could just as easily go get it for free themselves. They don't know, or they're just not putting that time and energy into it. Like, learn a new skill, even if it's, oh, I learned how to have a $40 a week average grocery bill and serve myself 3 meals a day on that. You can make light of really serious, that really serious way without, just don't be the Debbie Downer. Don't pull the energy out of the room. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And those shows such good soft
Yeah.
skills as well. It's like in a
Mhm.
time of like mental disparity, I learn
Mhm.
something new and turn it into something great or fun or whatever, and I learned the skill set. You wanted to add for the searching while unemployed, any tips for people there?
I just can't emphasize enough. Sometimes you gotta sit in it. Sometimes you gotta absolutely, just it does suck. It sucks. It absolutely is the worst. And I'm here to tell you
Yeah.
from a professional standpoint, it sucks from the team that is losing you as an employee, the team that has lost you. There is like, I hate when you see online where they're like, if you were to die tomorrow, they'd replace you tomorrow. Like, go spend time with your family. It's like, that's not true. I've never known a team to lose an employee, whether it be through voluntary or involuntary exits. Like, you are missed. But yeah, so
Yeah.
unemployment, sit in the suck, reach out for help. Don't sit in the shame of being unemployed, and don't allow that confidence level to be the issue and build the wall between you getting help from your friends, family, government resources, whatnot. And to know you are not alone. I think the stats I pulled for this was, out of the 7 million that were employed last year, only 2 million weren't on the job hunt because like they were happy in their role. So yeah, yeah. Know you're not alone. Know there are so many resources for you to reference, and you're not special. You're not. It's happened to millions of people, especially over the last 5 years. Our economic factors are only going to continue to yo-yo, and know that there are so many people out there willing to help you when you are being a decent human and have a healthy conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on this, and I want to emphasize it one more time, and then we'll close out. But because I see this a lot on LinkedIn, and I've even had people I know block me on LinkedIn because I look at everyone's LinkedIn, and I'll look at their LinkedIn when they're laid off because I just
Mhm.
want to know where they're going and
Yeah.
have they found anything, and maybe I have
Mhm.
something. End up hearing through the loop, they're like, "Oh, well, I thought that." Kaylin and her team were looking at my profile and making fun of me because I've been laid off for so long. And I'm like,
No.
first of all, why would you think that about me? Like, I'm in recruiting. We're like the last people who would make fun of people for layoffs. We've been laid off
Oh
more than
my
anyone
gosh.
for like any
Literally.
industry. Like, I can't talk,
Um,
geez.
why?
But we're not. No one's laughing at you. No business is like, yes, we get the layoff. This is a great day.
Oh
Like,
my
it's not
god.
good for them.
No one's laughing at you, and you don't block people on LinkedIn. It is a professional platform. You want as many people as possible looking at you because we are trying to connect you, and we're trying to communicate with you to help
Exactly.
you. I even had a conversation a week ago with a candidate. He's like, "Wait, why are you presenting this job with this agency if you don't work for them?" I said, "Well, somebody in my network shared that you were on the market. You have 15 years of experience, and I'm really close with this agency who's looking to fill a similar role in a different city. I'm connecting on not even their behalf, but on your behalf. If I see something that might be suitable for
Yeah.
you," he's like, "I don't want a company to not work with me because they don't want to pay the recruiter fee." I'm like, I'm not, this is fee free. This is me spending my lunch break saying
Yeah.
I'm helping you because I thought you were in this person's network. And yeah, and it's just like, I don't get, this is a whole nother podcast, Kailyn, we got to revisit. It's like, how, again, that recruiter ally, that's my next topic, because there's just yeah, don't block us, because you might not need us now, but you might need us in 20 years, 2 years. And
Yeah.
we're constantly creating new connections with companies and candidates that are also getting laid off and creating their own businesses. They still need to staff those as well. Every exceptional leader I have worked under, I have said that too, is if I could work fee free for you, I would. So be
Yeah.
nice to us. We're only trying to help. And I wish you had different life experiences that you could receive help with confidence and not be negative and nasty and think anyone's laughing at you. That's absurd. We're looking for your skills. We're looking at your experience. We want to connect you because there are teams that need you. We just got to find the right two sides to connect those dots.
Exactly. Exactly. No one's like, don't be ashamed to put up your green banner. Don't be ashamed to look and say, hey, I got laid off. I don't think I know anyone who hasn't been laid off. Maybe a couple people, but they're still very
Mhm.
early in their
Yeah.
career kind of thing. And it'll
Yeah.
happen. I mean, like your parents, my mom got laid off in '08
Yeah.
and she came home she thinks she
Yeah.
cried for like 3 days. Sorry, mom,
My
if you're
mom, no,
listening to
same.
this.
It was '08 for my mother as well, and we started community college together,
Oh,
and we carpooled while she was, yeah. So she
stop
actually went, and that's a
kissing.
great gap of employment there. Sorry, mom, I didn't ask your permission to share your story, but I'm your offspring, so it's mine too. She went back to school and got a paralegal degree, and then she did that for 3 or 4 years, and not even a decade later, the old company brought her back, and now she is the top estimator detailer on her team, and she's training other people, and she's been there for, I think she said she went back in 2014, 2015, and she loves the job, same group of people. And imagine if she held that against them, was like, "Ugh, I don't want to go back to work for them." She was like, "Oh, yes, like I want to go back to work with this team." And she was an exceptional team member at the time, and unfortunately the numbers didn't work, and she was the one that unfortunately had to go, but the company's grateful to have her, and hopefully she retires there. But, if she doesn't, she knows a great recruiter that can help her out.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good connection to have. I know how my mom got her job too, in terms of like
Yeah.
how to interview and negotiations. And she's like, I'm not going to get it. This is like a 40K increase. I'm like,
Mhm.
Mom, trust me,
So
you'll
sweet.
get it. Like, you'll get
Yeah.
it. I think that's it. So we kind of went over the key takeaways
Mhm.
already, but anything you want to leave someone, like, say your top 3 things from this, like highlight, or
Golly,
you're good.
top 3 things to keep it simple. Monitor your energy expenditure, employed, unemployed, do something that feeds your soul. Reading a new book, go to the library, play with the dog, walk the beach. Do what you can to keep yourself even keel. And again, decent version of yourself would be number 2. You got to show up positively for great things to happen for you. And, last, definitely not least, is that 988 number in case of emergency or in case of, extensive exhaustion. I am a huge advocate for suicide awareness, and hopefully, nobody listening to this, honestly, I can't even say hopefully because 9 times out of 10, we all know somebody of somebody. So, take care of yourself. You have purpose. You have so much to bring to this world, and there are so many people here on this planet at this time with you that love you and value you, and don't leave it up to an employer or an employment status or a certain version of your resume to feel that way.
Oh, so beautifully said. I'm going to make that a quote for this. Great, great line to end on. Well, thank you so much for
Mhm.
coming on the show, Kat. Like, amazing, amazing topics and advice. So hopefully the listeners, I mean, they will get a lot out of this. But if you have any questions, put them in the comment box or whatever you're listening to right now. We'll get those answered. And if we missed anything, y'all want us to go into detail more, ask us. We're happy. We're here and we're happy to get that answer for you. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, thanks again, Kat.